You are now listening to the Artsindy Crossroads Show.
Here's Suk-Yen Lee, host for CBC's Definitely Not the Opera and former VJ for Much Music.
I just Googled Nick Panu online, and I'm just trying to get a visual image of this person I'm talking to, you.
You can go to YouTube.
You're in a room wearing a black long wig.
Will Sasso stars for Mad TV and another series coming out on CBS.
Your intro there sounded like I was just making my way down to the ring for a MMA fight.
Interviews with
Ruth Moody, the Wailing Jennies.
You're so welcome. Take care.
Trey Anthony, motivational speaker David Roche. Karen LeBlanc, the star of Nurse, the Fighter Boy.
Hi, Nick. I'm really good, and thank you for asking
people in film, theater, music, the arts.
A good early evening to everyone here in the Valley. You're listening to CivL Radio 101.7 FM, broadcasting to the Fraser Valley from the UFV Abbotsford campus on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people.
I have some good news for you listeners. Author Seamus Heffernan is back with a sequel to his critically acclaimed novel Napalm Hearts. We had the interview for you last year. A sequel to Napalm Hearts is Seamus's new novel, 10 Grand. Launch party this Thursday, June the 26th, from 6 to 8 p.m. Everyone's welcome. It's at the Keratin Art Gallery in Abbotsford. So check that out. There will be a Q&A. Books will be on sale. So I can actually tell you a little bit about the book. Don't want to give everything away, but Seamus's latest novel, 10 Grand, which is a sequel to Napalm Hearts, sees the main character Grayle investigate the disappearance of a wealthy London banker whose sudden departure has left family devastated, and the police stymied. Has left the family devastated and the police stymied. In the midst of this, the detective must also navigate a dangerous crisis left behind, an old friend, one that has truly dire consequences for all involved. Sorry, listeners, for my pronunciation. I'm still getting over a cold, and I hope you are all doing well, because I heard this, this allergy, flu, funny thing going around for a lot of people. So Seamus, congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
Yeah, your last book got a lot of great reviews. It was crime detective. You use lots of your past experience in private investigating all the cases you had. Really engaging, sucks you right in from the beginning. You kind of have to keep reading it to find out the ending.
Well, that's good. I'm very happy to hear that. I'd be disappointed, I think, trying to write a detective novel and people get halfway through and they're like, you know what, I'm not actually that interested in how this turns out. That would be wrong, to say the least. So hopefully people feel similarly about the next one too. So.
Is it conscious the way you write? You make the characters real, organic. Maybe it's natural to you, but for some people it's hard.
Well, how to create characters?
Yeah, make the characters real, like organic.
No, yeah. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I honestly don't really do. I know some writers do very intensive, background stories on all their characters, write these mini biographies of them, and I never really felt like that. I think that I'm very fortunate that for whatever reason the people that I decide to populate these stories seem to resonate with readers. I don't know if there's any great trick to it, other than you try to create people that your readers are going to care about, and so you make them flawed and you make them
flaws. Yeah,
you make them flawed, you make them compelling, as compelling as you can. You try to avoid your cliches, but it's genre fiction too, so there's always going to be tropes and cliches. So that's a very roundabout way of saying that I don't put a huge amount of pre-work into the characters. I have an idea about where I want the story to go, and I need to know how the characters are going to help progress that, and that kind of shapes them as individuals, and the rest of it they kind of fill in for me. I know that sounds horribly pretentious, and I know that sounds really artsy, but when you're in the middle of the writing, you kind of trust these people that you've created to take you in the direction that they want to go. Whenever I get stuck when I'm writing, or I'm at like an impasse about what should happen next, I think, what would this person do in this situation right now?
Sometimes people, like I'm sure you did that too, give a little detail, but is maybe necessarily that's not the trick, is giving detail. Like they're sitting at the table, they started clipping their fingernails.
I don't even think I did a lot of real deep physical descriptions of the people. I kind of like the idea that people had to picture them themselves with very little assistance, other than apparently like the occasional comment about their hair or what they might be wearing at a certain point. Details, things like tattoos, piercings, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean you can throw that in to kind of flesh it out and to give the character layers. But I think the trick is you're trying to create likable people and then make their lives miserable. And if you can do that, people are like, oh, what great characters. And in many ways what they're saying is, oh, the story is working because the characters are acting the way that they should. I appreciated your compliment earlier. I don't actually think I'm a particularly strong writer of creating characters. I think that I'm very good at creating people who can move a scene along and move a story, and therefore move the story along. It's not a hard read. Like if anyone's listening, it's not War and Peace. I wanted to write a book that people could read on the beach or while they were waiting in line at the DMV or at the doctor's office or something.
Are you going with the same publishing company?
Yeah. Yeah. They've been really nice to me. I don't know how else to say it. The head of the company. I mean, one of the benefits of working for a smaller outfit is, if I want to talk to the guy who's the director of the company, I send him an email, and the next morning we'll Skype. He's always accountable to us, because I've heard good things from the other writers that they've signed. My contract is very clear that they can have their own say about a lot of things, but they've always included me in all the big decisions. How's the book supposed to look? To any kind of questions or issues about language or choice of words, they're very much like, oh, whatever you think is best. So that's nice, and you don't necessarily get that from all the publishers, and you certainly wouldn't get it from some of the bigger houses. They'd be like, it's my way or highway.
No, I remember last time we talked, this book was already in the works. Was it this book or another one? There was only something else in the works.
I had started to roughly kind of put together some ideas for what I wanted the second book to be. After the first book came out last April, I took some time off from writing, and then I started writing because of the publisher wanted to get the second one out very quickly. They felt the first book did well enough that the momentum there was, they wanted to keep going. And of course, these kind of like genre fiction, whether it's horror or mystery, crime, or romance, all that stuff, people like series. They like books that have the same characters that kind of move from novel to novel. And my publisher was very clear. They said, we want to get your next book with these people out in the world as soon as possible. And of course, I said yes, because I would have said yes to anything at that point. So they said, great, so your deadline is New Year's Day, 2019. I was like, yeah, no problem. Well, it actually is a problem, because I had a few years as a hobby to write a novel, and now all of a sudden I have a few months to write a book under contract. So it was very difficult, and it was hard not to feel rushed, even though when I did have a chance to go back and do like hard edits and hopefully take the edge off the frantic nature of its production. But this one was definitely a lot less fun, just for that. But then when it was done, and advanced readers got to check it out, which, by the way, if you're listening, please feel free to go to my website and sign up for my mailing list. You could be asked to be an advanced reader for the next one when that happens. It didn't really feel fun until it was over, and then those people had came back to me and they said that wow, this was very good, or this really threw me for a loop. And you start getting feedback, and then you start to relax and you can kind of enjoy it. So the process wasn't nearly as enjoyable this time, but the end result was still fun. Yeah, and that was reassuring. So we will, and hopefully, hopefully everybody who liked the first one is going to like this one too. We'll see. I can't really ask for anything more. And but you know what? If they don't, that's okay too. It's not the end of the world. It's all just make believe, Nick. It's okay. Obviously, I'd much rather people buy my book, read it, and go, "Oh yeah, that was really good," than see me and tell me what a piece of crap it was. But anytime that you create something or make something, that's the risk. You're putting yourself out there, and people, they pays their money. They get to have their say, and that's okay.
Do you find in this novel, whether intentionally or unconsciously, you want to do things with the characters that you kind of held off in the last book?
Oh,
or just a story or something?
I don't know if it's so much of holding off as it is letting your characters grow and change, which I think is kind of important. I don't know if it was a matter of holding off, revealing things about the character or saving things for the story. So much it was, the characters just naturally they're going to change, they're going to grow, they're going to be different. Some of that did surprise me. Some of it did take me in a different direction than I thought that it would. I still remember, getting to the last page, and I was still unsure what the last thing, the last scene was going to be, and then I realized, that's exactly what he would do here. And so the book does end on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Sorry, listener, but I ended up being great, and that cliffhanger is a massive character shift for one of the people in it. So again, it goes back to, if you're in the middle of writing and you're moving your story along, you gotta trust these people to take you there, and their choices might surprise you sometimes.
Are you from the Maritimes?
Yeah, I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland. I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland. Actually, I was born in St. John's, but I grew up in a suburb city directly next to St. John's called Mount Pearl. When I was 22, I moved to Ottawa, and I lived in Ottawa for about 7 or 8 years. And then I moved to England. That's where the book is based, in England, because I lived in London for 5 years, which I quite liked. Then I went back to Newfoundland. Oh, no, I did. Oh, okay. I did like England. And I just came home. I went back to Newfoundland. I was very fortunate. I've got friends and family who are still there who were great. And then after a few years, the opportunity to move out here came up. I went to UFE. I did my master's degree in criminal justice. I used to be a high school teacher, and I worked for a couple of years in Abbotsford as a youth worker, which was great. And that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to keep working with those kinds of kids. That's why I wanted to do my master's in criminal justice, and I wanted to focus on youth issues and school safety issues. But life has strange plans for us sometimes. And I met Mr. Sidhu, who's now MP Sidhu, before any of this had happened, and he was just getting ready to start his campaign, and he asked me for help, and so I said yes, and now here we are 5 years later, and I'm managing his staff, and we find ourselves in another tough fight. We'll see what happens. And by the way, I love living here now. I absolutely love BC. I love the Pacific Northwest. And not think about it too much and just go, okay, just keep working, and hopefully good things will happen. I'm very fortunate that they did. So what I've learned from this whole experience is I don't take a lot for granted. I might put a little extra butter on the roll. I might have the second glass of wine every now and then. I might stay up a little too late to watch YouTube clips or the game if it's, Gotta enjoy it. You can't take any of this for granted.
Maybe a cheesy question.
Go ahead.
Seamus, was there something fulfilling after writing this? Oh yeah, you kind of touched on it there. Fulfilling in an artistic way. I mean, you talked about dealing the interaction with people and everything, but just from an artistic standpoint, finishing this story compared to finishing the first one.
See, when I finished the last one, I had no idea what was going to happen. And there was somebody who I was asking for advice, and they said, "Well, that doesn't actually that doesn't sound like it's going to work at all. It sounds terrible." Like, and then, I said, "You know what? I'm finishing my book. The hell with that. I don't care if nobody reads it. I don't care if it never happened. Finishing this damn story. Like, that's it." And then, so when I did, I got really serious about getting it done. I started showing it to people who, not only that I like, but I trusted, because your friends want you to be successful. Your friends are going to find it very hard to tell you that something you do is terrible. So you got to find the friends who actually will do that, and tell them that they have to. And so when I started getting feedback from people who were also writers, people who had experience with editing, people who would tell me if I was full, which is very important, not just for an artist, but I'd say any adult. The feedback was quite good, and so I went back and I started editing and I started rewriting and polishing, and then I just sent it out. I honestly, I don't know if I ever expected anybody to call me up and say that they wanted to publish it. Two people got in touch, and I said yes to the first one. I'm very, very blessed in that regard. So I didn't really feel anything except, I guess, a little bit of pride when I finished the first book, because I didn't know what was going to happen. The real excitement and the happiness is when, people say, you get an email saying we want to work with you, and you see, proofs of what the artwork's going to look like on your book, and then you got to put you get to do fun stuff like this, where you sit around and you get to answer questions about yourself. Like, who the hell wouldn't want to do that, right? Like, that's great. This book, I felt relief more than anything, because it was just 100 miles an hour trying to get it done, and when it was done, and then I sent it off to my publisher. It was actually I recorded me doing that for my Instagram, sending it in. I was very tired. I remember that. I felt relieved, and of course, you're also a little nervous. Like, they might come back and say, "Actually, no, man. Like, this ain't what we were expecting or what we thought." But they liked it, and then so we get our advanced readers, and they like it, and then that's when I think you start to get the happiness again. Does that make sense? I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and he said, "Wow, man, you must be so proud and so excited." And I said, "You know what? I haven't really felt any joy about this book yet. It's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of process. It's a lot of stuff that I don't want to do, like making sure that my mailing list is updated, making sure that all these invitations are taken care of, trying to do press, trying to organize press, I should say. Like, the actual process of doing it is fine." And then promoting yourself, it's a struggle. I think it's a struggle for a lot of creative people, alleged or otherwise. We're great at writing stories, maybe we're not so great at promoting ourselves. I don't think many of us are natural entrepreneurs. I'm starting to get happy now. It's starting to feel really real. There's a crate full of books in my office. I haven't even opened it yet. I think I'm going to wait until the day of the event, and then I'll be like, yeah, let's go. Here we go. And I kind of have an idea about what I want a third book to be, but I have to see how. I don't think I'm going to be able to get much done on that until after the federal election, and then who knows? Maybe I'll have all sorts of time to write, depending on how all that goes.
Is it kind of a trilogy, like?
No, not. It's not a planned one like that. Hell, when I wrote the first one, I didn't never think there'd be a second one, and then they asked me for it. I was like, oh yeah, I guess that could work. And now, I've got an idea for what I'd like to do next, but it's very embryonic. I haven't gotten very far with it. No, whatever shall be, shall be. I mean, this book could completely tank, and that'll be it. 2 and done, right? We'll see. Obviously, I hope it doesn't, but like I said, shouldn't take anything for granted. Very, very fortunate that people like the first one. Let's hope they like the second one, and if it goes well, I'll try to get the third one out there. C'est la vie.
What's that process like when you write your draft? There was more of a deadline this time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So you quickly you wrote the first draft, right?
Yeah.
And then you went back to it and.
Oh yeah. This will be not a great surprise for anybody who knows me on a personal level. My kind of approach is erratic. Some people, like for instance Hemingway, would always, the next morning when he'd get up and start writing, he would just edit everything that he'd written before, and that was part of his process. I can't really do that. I try to stay on top of the more egregious stuff, or things that I knew I'd have to go back to. I made sure that I denoted that in the text. Fix this or find this out. There's just no time. Like there's no time to be sitting around, stroking your beard, going, oh yeah, these 18 possibilities. Let's explore each one. There's just no time for that stuff at this point. It's like get it done. So what I was doing was. I had a very rough idea about how I wanted the story to progress, and so I was dividing my days up in 2,000-word chunks, trying to write at least a chapter every day and keep everything just moving along, and then I'd be making notes myself about what was going to happen next. And even then, there'd be times where I would just have to kind of trust what I was in the moment writing to provide and keep it moving. On my phone, it's got piles of notes and audio, those voice file things. Like I'd be driving and, I'd say, okay, Google, open up voice memo, and I'd start shouting in the car. And in this scene, this happens, or don't forget to add that, just so I wouldn't forget. And then take all that then and keep going. So the idea of here's the finished first draft, then you go back to the beginning, and you start all over again, and you rewrite. I don't think that's really existed since we got word processors. I think that you have your draft, and you're always messing around with that thing until you get as close to a final draft that there is. The thing is, for most writers, there is no final draft. We just keep picking away at it forever. We literally would, and then it's a big leap of faith to say, okay, I trust my editor as my publisher now, and hand it over for them to put it through their ringer.
Because I remember hearing that once in a workshop, hearing that throughout the workshop. This one, yeah. So the first draft is not the book; just write it.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And it looks nothing like the final.
No, it's yeah. Don't worry about getting. This is an old cliche, but don't worry about getting it right. Just get it written, man. Get it down. I've got since I wrote these things. I meet people who say, "Oh well, I want to write a book, but I don't have any time, or I'm struggling to get it all just perfect, or I'm waiting for inspiration." I said, these are all the things that are holding you back. Just put one word after the other. Okay? It's not going to be perfect. It's probably going to be terrible. A lot of it's going to be terrible. I mean, Stephen King's drafts are probably terrible when he's knocking them out. And he goes back and he does what we all do. We rewrite constantly. 90% of it is rewriting back. That's it. The 10% that's the fun stuff. It's like, oh yeah, all these crazy ideas, and let's do this, and let's see what would happen if they were there.
The second editing stage, there's a kind of enjoyable process within that stage. Kind of just people realize it once they start doing it more. Like there's a first stage unedited. Yeah, I don't want to give away your secrets. I'm just.
You literally can ask me whatever you want. It's fine. And there's no secrets.
Yeah.
Like people who are listening to this, they might have questions about the writing process. They might be thinking about writing a book or something themselves. Or, I don't know, maybe they're just kind of interested in how this kind of stuff comes together. There's no secret to it. I can just tell you what my process is. And it might work for some people, and they'll be like, oh, God, no. Like a buddy of mine, AJ Devlin, really successful crime writer in Port Moody. His first novel, it's called Cobra Clutch. It's a crime comedy book about a professional wrestler who becomes a detective. He just won the Arthur Ellis Award, which is a huge deal. He has to have these insanely detailed outlines ready before he sits down to write his book, and I can't do that. He has to have like a blueprint of the book out, and then he just moves it along. And I am very different. Like, my outlines are usually only like a page or two, and they're very tentative. They can change very easily. As long as I have an idea about how I want to progress the story, I'm fine. AJ could never do that, but that's because that's not his process. Like, how I write would drive him crazy.
No, because I noticed that sometimes more ideas. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes the direction can keep changing for some other people when they go to the editing stage. Are not necessarily direction changing. They don't have one very strong one, clear one when they start in the first stage unedited.
We got to have an idea.
Oh no, I guess there is an overall idea, but just I guess
especially for first-time writers. Ideas are cheap. Lots of people've got ideas. On my phone right now, I've got 80 short story ideas and a few book ideas. I'm never going to get to write all this stuff now. Ideas are cheap. They're a dime a dozen. Discipline, like following through, commitment, and being strong enough to ignore the voice in your head that always tells you you're a fraud, you're an imposter, you're not a real writer, none of this matters. That's the difference. Can you stick with it? Can you overcome that?
Interesting though, like there's a first unedited stage that's one side of the brain, editing, second stage editing. Then I wonder, curious about, a lot more about this, the third stage, the stage after the second stage. That's probably working a different part too.
Yeah, the stage after the second stage is now you're working with other people. Now your publisher's looking at your book. They've got editors that they're going to draw upon and say, hey, do you want to work with this guy? I reached out to a couple of people who I knew, who I trusted, and said, would you look at this manuscript and give me your feedback? And I was very upfront. I said, it's not the finished product, so I'm looking for everything from if I've missed typos to if you don't think makes sense. Can you help me proof this manuscript, for better or for worse? Because there's a couple of points in the book like, I hope that works. That's the third stage, and that's that can be a little scary too, because it's the first time that you're setting your baby out there, right? And now you're going to hear from other people. Like, just you and your book, you can kid yourself all the time. Oh wow, this is really good. And then there's that terrifying moment when you hand it over to somebody else.
Listeners, you were just listening to an interview with author Seamus Heffernan for his latest novel, 10 Grand, and Q&A and book launch for his latest publication, which is a sequel to Napalm Hearts, will be happening this Thursday, June the 27th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Keratin Art Gallery, Abbotsford. And show up for refreshments. There's a Q&A.
If you